Okay, that carried. Public comment. No one? Anyone? Just me? Both? Same group?
We're not a part of the group.
Okay.
We're not part of the group.
You both going to speak?
Yeah.
Come on and speak.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Megan Fox. It's nice to be here. Nice to meet you. You have a beautiful library. I'm a homeschooling mother of 3, and I came here tonight to thank you and applaud you for being proactive and recognizing that your library might not be as safe as it could be for children and staff because of unfiltered computers. I've been researching and writing about filtering in public libraries for a solid year, and I've become an expert on this subject, even though I had no intention of doing so. And I thought I would come to help you sift through some of the very confusing information that is out there about your responsibility as a library board to the public that you serve. This is important particularly because the American Library Association sets itself up as the experts on library law and everything related to libraries, when in reality what they do is mislead the public, and they lie to libraries, and they have been doing so since they lost their battle with the Supreme Court in 2003 about this very topic. And the topic we're talking about, of course, is providing access to child porn and bestiality and other criminal content online on public computers. In this landmark ruling, the Supreme Court ruled against the ALA, and they said, and this is a quote, "Filters on library computers do not violate patrons' First Amendment rights." And that as the books on the library are selected, that the internet is simply an extension of the bookshelf, and so you have the right as the board and librarians to choose the information that you would allow your patrons to look at, just like you choose the books on the shelf. It's no different, according to the Supreme Court. Something that I noticed reported in the paper concerned me. Your acting director had regurgitated the ALA talking points while telling the media that filters block important, non-sexually arousing material. This is false. And maybe she doesn't know this, but I want to make sure you know that in the year 2014, no filter is keeping people from researching breast cancer, nude works of art, or any other legal topics or images. This is getting to be laughable now. It's a story that they keep telling at the American Library Association and using as talking points to make people upset that, oh, filters might block important information. But it's so bad now that Barbara Jones, who's the head of the Office of Intellectual Freedom at the ALA, was called out by the Huffington Post when they questioned her about statements she made that breast cancer information was blocked by filters, and Jones had to admit that her claim is no longer true. Further, filters can be lifted by the touch of a button on request of a patron who has been blocked from a legitimate site. But even the Supreme Court said that a librarian does not have to unblock a sexually arousing site. So that is not protected under the First Amendment. And you certainly have an obligation to block illegal content like child porn. And in your search for a permanent director here, I would encourage you strongly to find a director who is committed to protecting children from predators and sex offenders, who does not agree with the ALA's dangerous philosophy of encouraging sexual predators to be welcomed in public libraries. This is akin to chumming a beach where children swim and telling people that the water is safe, when in reality they are attracting sharks on purpose. During my investigation into this problem in libraries, I spoke with William Harmony, and he is a really important guy to talk to and to know. William Harmony is the guy who founded the Cyber Crimes Unit Against Children in Illinois at the AG's office. He is an expert, and he does speak to groups if you want to talk to him. And he was adamant that child predators regularly use library computers to commit crimes against children anonymously. And when asked, he said, "We lost count how many times a child porn investigation ended up at a library IP address, and once that happened, the investigation goes cold because of software, mostly suggested by the ALA, that most libraries have that delete all records on a daily basis, thwarting police investigation and protecting pedophiles." I am sure you do not want that happening here, and children exploited in that way. And I'm here to encourage you to protect yourselves by installing filters that will block this illegal material and thwart sex offenders who would take advantage of the status quo. You also will be protecting your staff, who should not be exposed to sexually harassing environment, which is against the law in Illinois. In ALA-run libraries, librarians have been told they must put up with sexually harassing environments, and if they complain, they are told they can quit. But that is against the law, and in Minneapolis, $500,000 was paid to 12 librarians for this very thing. When they complained, the library did nothing, and they sued with the EEOC, and they won $500,000. The ALA will tell you, well, that was a settlement. That doesn't mean anything because they settled. Well, you don't settle for $500,000 unless you know that a jury is going to make you pay a lot more than that. And there was another one in Atlanta or Birmingham, Alabama.
5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Your library is lovely.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Karen Dimond, and I'm a researcher. I've actually been studying the law firm Kleinthorpe Jenkins and the advice that they give to libraries around the state. Not a lot of good advice in some cases. So one of the things I was concerned about, I read an article in the paper that said that Dennis Walsh and Kleinthorpe Jenkins is your attorneys. Please take a look at the advice that they give to some other libraries, some of the problems that are caused by that advice. I want to commend what I saw here tonight. I was incredibly impressed by your presentation on the budget and the questions that were asked and the level of detail and the way that you are all on top of this. And it is pretty impressive. In different library boards meetings that we have attended and we have studied, I have not seen this level of interest in cutting the budget and in lowering the tax levy and saving people money and really respecting that. And to me, it feels like you really listen to what your community needs and you are addressing that. And it is incredibly impressive. And there was a comment here from one of the trustees of, can we get this report even earlier? We want more time to study it. And that absolutely blew me away. I loved hearing that. I also brought with me the book that I read this week. It's called Quiet Please, Dispatches from a Public Librarian by Scott Douglas. You actually, I think, have this here in your collection. Check it out and read it, because there's some great stories in here from a librarian in Anaheim, California. Scott Douglas is the author, and he was there right when the computers started coming in. So he witnessed all of these problems going from a library that didn't have, the big computer setups to having the computers installed and the guys coming in and looking at the sexually arousing content and the problems that then followed that. There was a library director that was new at his library that came in. Her name was Fallon. And she came in with a lot of kind of crazy ideas. She was an ALA kind of a mindset person. One of the things she did is she decided to start serving popcorn in the library. And even though librarians didn't like that idea, knew that that would lead to problems and wanted to speak up, she wouldn't listen to the staff. And she also wouldn't listen to the trustees. And it was her way or the highway kind of a thing. And wouldn't you know it, by bringing in the food, they brought in a bunch of rats. And then the library had a rat problem that they had never had before. So there's sometimes unintended consequences when a library director comes in and gets an idea in her head and it's backed up, by an organization like the ALA and doesn't want to listen to the board. So I know that you are in the process of selecting a new library director. I really urge you to be very careful in who you pick and really take a look at that person and see if that person has the mindset that she works for you, as opposed to her controlling you or her telling you what to do. Because what I've seen from you is you are the board that people should have at different libraries. You are asking the right questions. You are very conscientious. You are asking for more time even to review materials before they're voted on, before they're put forward and things. So whoever is the library director here in the future, please have it be someone who will respect you and who can work well with you, but also has those needs of the community. Some of the things that were in this book that were really interesting. Did you know that at this library in Anaheim, they blocked the site MySpace? And I would never even think that that would be something that someone would block, but they blocked it because all the people going on MySpace, you can tell this book is old because no one uses MySpace anymore, but at the time it was crashing their computer network. They couldn't have all these kids constantly on MySpace. So the library made the decision that was in the best interest in the community that we're going to block MySpace. And some people grumbled or whatever, but the library said, we don't have any obligation to provide MySpace. We don't have every book that's ever been written here. We choose what's in our collection. We have to choose what's on the bookshelf. And what's on the computer is really just an extension of the bookshelf. They also blocked a site called World of Warcraft. It was an online, multiplayer game kind of a thing. That was also crashing their computer network. So that was blocked because, once again, it was interfering with the needs of the other patrons. The behavior of the people who were playing the online games was detrimental to the rest of the community. They blocked gambling sites, online gambling sites, because that was an element they didn't want to have in the library. Once again, it's a behavior thing. So they were looking at the needs of the community and seeing that there are things that lead to bad behaviors that we don't want to have in our library here in Anaheim, and they blocked it, and they were not sued. There was none of this craziness. the ALA keeps telling libraries, if you don't do what we say, you're going to get sued. And that is just not true. And I think some libraries have bad attorneys that give them bad advice that lead them down bad roads and lead to giant messes. And so I think as a board, you need to do your conscientious duty, and you need to take a look at all of the advice and really look at what the needs of your community are. So far from what I've seen, boy, is that impressive. Your website, probably the best library website that I have seen so far. That you have won that transparency award. Boy, was that well earned. Because when you go on there, you can see all of the different meeting minutes, all of that stuff.
Thanks so much.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Any additional public comment? There being none, we'll move forward. Treasurer's report.
Okay, we are on page 27. Revenue. The total revenue, the actual for the month was $51,000. Our budget in the month was $91,112. Any reason for that?
At the beginning of the year, we try to predict the cash flows from the county, but it's dependent on when people, property holders actually pay their taxes. And you can see that the property taxes are off $46,000, which for the most part carries down to the bottom, showing a $30,000 shortfall in the month. So it's an estimate, the budget's an estimate, the best that we could possibly do based on past patterns, but the past is not always guaranteed.
And looks like your year-to-date is just off by what, by 2%?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Total salaries for the month were $238,743. Our budget amount was $261,787. So we are actually we're showing 23,000 under budget. So I thought we were looking at some figures that showed salaries so much higher.
Well, the actual numbers reflect the fact that we're down several people. Our cleaners left, the devices left. Okay. The year-to-date variance is almost $110,000 for the first third of the year. So if conditions persist moving forward, we should see a budget. We should be under budget by some $330,000.
Thank you.
If nothing changes.
Okay, and then we are total library materials for the month were $76,469 for an actual. Our budgeted amount was $50,667, and I believe we discussed this in the past. Sometimes things are purchased more at one time than another, and that's why it looks like our actual is higher. But it's
So if you look at online databases, we pay $35,000 in a month against a budget of $13,333. Typically, the databases are paid 1 year in advance. So these are 12-month fees for access to certain of our databases.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that explanation. Total library operating expenditures for the month were $22,468 with a budget of $26,001. So that is also looking healthy. And then that's all I earmarked for this month.
Any other questions then on the treasurer's report? Okay, let's move on. Director's report. Highlights and ones.
Yeah, very little because it's such a long agenda. I did, of course, want to call your attention, though, to the fact that we were named a 4-star library, and congratulations to all of you on the role you played in that. That's a very big honor. I also wanted to remind you about the Thanksgiving baskets, so if you did want to contribute to those, you would get the money to Sue Wilson tonight. And last of all, there is the District 63 TLC, which is their after-school program gala, which is December 11th. And if you would like to attend that, it is unfortunately the same night as Dean Strelacki's retirement party. So that's really unfortunate. But if you would like to attend to that, please let Diane or me know right away. And that is, I'll have everything else is in my written report.
Is there a question? Okay, thank you, Madam Director. Communications are in our packets. Any comments on that? Liaison, no friends of the library report?
Our friends did meet, they agreed to buy some new end carts for the library, $3,000 worth of new end carts. They asked for a third quote on some shelving that we want to have built in the lobby, and at this point we may just go ahead and do that ourselves.
Do what you're saying.
Build the shelves. We want to build circular shelves around the poles in the lobby for displays, for book displaying materials, so nobody felt that the lobby didn't have enough materials in it as people walked in, and so it's kind of tiered like a birthday cake. And the first quote was $4,000, and the second quote was $9,000. And they decided that they wanted another quote, and it did not, though, from the tone of the discussion, sound like they really wanted to do it at all. I did not have any confidence that they would agree to it after. And in December, they have a party rather than the regular meeting, so it wouldn't even get looked at again until January. So.
Okay, so we can discuss that, I guess, in the future, but you were putting together a list of stuff for us so we can get a clearer view as to what's going on there. All right, thank you. Nothing legislative, nothing rails. Nurse Secretary, anything? No report there. Let's go to new business then. Move to adopt the revised policy 3.21, internet access. The motion? Move. Chris? Second Jeanette. Discussion?
Yeah, I don't think this is a important policy. I'm just concerned it's getting a little late, and I was just want to throw out there, is this something we can postpone to a different day, to our next meeting, or I just want to know if people want to really talk about it tonight, that's all.
We'll talk about it tonight. It won't take too long. How long? And you put under a lot of objections? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was looking at our mission, our core values, and as I went through them, I just have down that, well, let me just start here. First of all, I believe libraries should support the Freedom of Information Act, and we should not censor information, and then who decides what is bad behavior? So, I guess the point is, whose hands is that in? So part of our mission, and I got this off of our website, under our About Us, under our core values, it states, respect all individuals, we believe in intellectual freedom, we believe in the importance of confidentiality, access to information for all, we respect privacy and confidentiality. Yeah, those are the pieces. And then, let's see. So I'm wondering, how does filtering actually mirror those core values that we have written?
Well, I think if I understand the policy as written, and do correctly, the policy as written is that our computers are very public, right? And they can be seen all over the place. Any legal search can be conducted, right? If the filtering information blocks it, the filtering program blocks something, you can get that taken off right away as long as it's what's called a lawful search.
If you're doing research for a lawful purpose,
right?
You can ask that the filter be removed.
Right.
So when you say whose hands are in control, it would be the law, right? Which I think it's a kind of a bright line, right, as to where unlawful searches begin and where lawful searches.
Well, if a patron asks you to remove it because they want to conduct a lawful purpose, then you remove the filter for that purpose.
Right, so that's the purpose. So you maintain your intellectual freedom. I think it's just a basic protection for staff, for
Right, but it doesn't
you,
really
and for us.
respect privacy and confidentiality, which is one of our core values. Because then the person would still have to come up. They would have to know what the search is. So that would really take away their privacy. So
Yeah, but I think the filters are pretty good, and Google's pretty good about
But we
understanding.
still have filters on all the children's computers. Then I called up the areas around just to see who else had filters on their computers. So I called Displays, Glenview, Lincolnwood, Skokie. None of them do on their adult computers. So Lincolnwood does have a disclaimer. So every time you log in, they have to, say yes to a paragraph of information saying, I will not conduct a search with any type of images, or, they have a lengthy paragraph of what they have to actually, check, and then they can actually log in, which is nice. I thought the disclaimer is fine, but to actually filter, I thought was pretty strict.
It might be more restrictive, just the filtering at Martin Grove, wherever you're talking about, but.
Well, no, that's Lincoln
Oh,
Way,
Lincoln Way, sorry.
but Des Plaines, Glenview, Skokie, all of our neighboring, none of them have filters, and a couple didn't even have filters on their showrooms. They just
I agree, that's good to do the research. Just for me, Linda, a lot of libraries don't have debt paid off, a lot of libraries don't do what we do. So I don't know whether that's a valid comparison. I think this balances out the need. Okay, but in this case, my point being is that it balances out. Even as an adult, I don't want to really run into that kind of stuff, right? So instead,
well, I'm not
you have
talking
the,
child porn. Of course, we don't want to have that in here. However, we still have staff. We still have people monitoring.
well, then the staff gets
So-
forced, so I think it protects them too. All right, you're against.
Okay.
Any other comments? Karen?
Yeah, I have a question or two. So, I understand that this access would block, or this filter would block access on both the library's computers and on the personal computers that an individual might bring into the library with them, right? Is that right, Susan?
That's correct.
That is the way it's written in this policy.
Okay, all right. So as a practical matter, if someone is either on a library computer or using their own computer, and they conduct a search, it will perhaps bring up some sites, but not sites that the software has deemed inappropriate. Is that correct?
Yes.
It'll block unlawful sites.
All right, but, well, it blocks certain sites.
Determined to be unlawful.
I think
Well-
right now the software, at least on the children's computers, blocks nudity and pornography. Is that right?
Correct.
It doesn't block the violence, racism part of this policy. So if we don't want to do that, we can eliminate that part of it. But the children's filter, the current filter that we have, blocks, I believe what you told me was nudity and pornography.
Okay, so you can choose which types of
Yes.
website it filters.
Right, exactly.
And, all right, so the person who's using the computer, all right, it gives them some message that some website or has been blocked. Is
Yes,
that correct?
that's right.
All right, so if they see that message on their computer, that a website has been blocked, then they have to go up to a staff member. Does it tell them that they need to go to a staff member?
No, it just tells them that it's blocked.
All right, so they
Because that's the
won't
filter
really,
itself giving the message, not us.
all right, so they won't really know that there was a way to actually get it unblocked?
Well, signage or something.
could take care of that.
Yeah.
All right, let's say there's a sign there. Okay, so they have to go to some library staff member.
Correct.
And that would, then the person who is approached, and we don't know which person they might approach, that individual has the discretion to turn the filters off upon request. I guess that's what I'm concerned about, is how does that person know, or what kind of discretion do they have to turn off a filter or to allow one or more websites to be seen? This is what concerns me, is how is that discretion exercised, and who has that discretion, and what's it based upon, and does that mean they can allow some websites and others? And those are all questions that I have about how this policy is actually going to work. I mean, for instance, let's say someone, did a search for anarchy, and, maybe there are some violent websites related to anarchy, but anarchy or anarchism is sort of a political system too, which it seems like someone should be able to at least research it if they want it. And it just seems to put discretion in the hands of staff without really telling the staff members how to exercise that discretion. So I just find this policy something that might be difficult to implement in practice.
That can be remedied by having no discretion. If an adult comes up to the person who has the capacity to take off the filter and says, I'm conducting a lawful search of something and I want you to turn off the filter on my computer, then the staff member will do so.
All right, so that would involve changing the policy according to the policy.
That word, yes.
Okay.
There is another issue with the policy in terms of practicality at this point, which is until we get some software, hardware, I guess, we can't filter the wireless network and then turn it back on immediately if somebody makes a request to do that. So that part, if we adopt this internet access policy as it stands, that part of it will have to be delayed until we get the hardware and the software.
You know,
So it'd
I'm
be
sorry, Dennis, I did not just understand
Well,
what you
explain
said.
it. So
Well,
right
Dennis,
now, I'll give you a second, boys. I think this clarifies it. So right now, what we have here in place, if we were to if we file this policy, right, it would filter 100% of the connections, right, whether it was your own device or whether it was a library device. Right now, we don't have the capacity with our filter to on your own device. So if Karen Dimond brought her device in and did a lawful search that got blocked, we could not unblock it on your own device, but we could on a library device unblock it. So that part would be suspended until we have the technology in place, the software and the hardware necessary to implement that. That's what Dennis said. Makes sense?
Is that what you meant?
That's it. Which we can get, correct?
Any other?
Or we could pass this and that could always just be implemented when we're ready.
When we get the
We don't
hardware
need to
software.
exclude that.
So I have a question. So here I am, well, Main South Librarian. My kids are doing research on human trafficking or child pornography, and of course they're not for it. However, but when they do searches here, what will happen?
It sounds like, if I understand the filtering right now that we have, they would not be able to find nudity, which I think you wouldn't want, right? And
Right, well,
They could find
or child
out about
pornography.
it.
They can find out about it on Wikipedia
Right,
page, which
right,
is not allowed.
right,
And do your research.
right.
I would guess, is being sensitive to perhaps your concerns and maybe Karen's as well. If we implement the policy, clearly, if we get feedback from staff, listen, this is a disaster, it's blocking everything, and the filtering software is terrible, et cetera, we would revisit that quickly, wouldn't we? We don't want to do that, that's not our intent here. Our intent is a focused filter, right? And that's really our goal. Any other comments?
Well, I do have to say, my main concern is the young children and even employees. If I was an employee, I would not want to be subjected to pornography. I don't think anyone should be, and I think we do have a responsibility. One of the first places our youth and children come is the library, and we do need to be concerned about elements of people that would be visiting here. We certainly don't want people to think that they can easily access pornography, and we have children in these new areas that we're working so hard to create, and yet we're allowing people who want to view pornography that could eventually affect our children or harm them to be able to just go to a computer and have all of this on their screens. Or as an employee, I wouldn't want to be walking around and be subjected to it. I think it is not an element for a library. I think we are responsible for the safety of the children who come here and for other people. And I don't think a library is a place for pornography. I do believe in today's world of technology, I'm sure we can figure out what we need to purchase or what technology is available to offset some issues that would eliminate access to sites that aren't pornography or do not reflect what we're trying to accomplish. And it may not happen overnight, but I'm sure there's a solution. But I think our goal should be to protect the youth that come in this library. And I don't think a library is a place for pornography for that reason.
Any other comments on that?
I would think before.
Hold on a
they
second.
even- Oh, go ahead.
No, I was thinking the same thing. We have too many kids running around, and they're not staying in the kids section. They can be all over. And if a private company where I work, where there are no children, strictly adults, we can't even access that. So, I don't think if you want to search porn and whatever, do it in privacy or your own home. Don't, bring it here and subject everybody.
Barbara, any comment?
Not at this time.
Chris?
I think we have a responsibility, although we have a responsibility to provide information, I don't think it should be unchecked. So I think this is a reasonable approach to keeping a safe environment. And if there was someone who wanted to do some of that, they could just drive down to Des Plaines and get their free filtering.
May I just make a quick comment? I do just want to be
free access to whatever they.
I do just want to be clear that we don't allow people to watch pornography. I mean, if somebody is doing it in the adult area, we have a way of remotely shutting off their computer. The staff member doesn't even have to witness it personally. So we don't allow it, just to be clear on that. I didn't want anybody to have the wrong impression. And also, if I may make a suggestion about the policy, I would strongly prefer that we not use the name of the filtering software in the policy, because then if we have to change filters for some reason, we have to come back and get it changed officially, and I would just prefer that it just say filtering through filtering software.
The library's filtering
Is
software.
that change is acceptable to the motion maker?
Yes.
Fine. The second, was the second one? Okay. All right, any new information, or we're gonna take a vote?
Oh, yeah, I just want to point that, you know, I certainly don't want children, other patrons, or employees to expose to pornography either. I just think with policies like this, sometimes the devil is in the detail, and implementing it can be difficult.
I think, Karen, that we're sensitive to that as a board, and I think so is the staff. All right, let's take a vote, please.
Okay, Chris,
Yes.
Karen,
No as to how it's written now. No.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Jeanette,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Linda. Motion carries.
Unfinished business, item 17A, move to approve to transfer 1.2 million from the general fund to the special reserve fund. Move. Chris.
Second.
Menace. Any discussion?
What is 1.2 million the right amount?
We have how much in there now, Greg?
We started the year with about $700,000, just like 702 something.
And you had estimated expenditures going forward out for 2021 of what?
About 1.9.
1.9, so this would be the whole funding. Is
Yeah.
this something we should do in stages, like start at 600,000 and see what comes